Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into a really critical situation today. It's all unfolding after that deeply troubling terrorist attack in Pahalgam. That was April 22nd, 2025.
hmm A horrific event claimed the lives of 26 civilians, and that included foreign tourists. The group Lashkar-e-Taiba, based in Pakistan, has been attributed.
Right, and the reaction from India, it was swift and pretty significant. Operation Sindoor. This involved airstrikes.
That's right, targeting 9 locations that India identified as terrorist infrastructure. These were sites within Pakistan and also Pakistan-administered Kashmir.
Okay. And Indian sources, they reported casualties from those strikes?
Yes, their reports mentioned 26 civilian deaths and 46 injuries. Pakistan, though, well, they offered a different narrative. Claimed they actually shot down 5 Indian fighter jets.
Wow, so completely different stories there. It sounds like things escalated incredibly quickly from that point.
Oh, absolutely. Almost immediately, we saw heavy artillery exchanges starting up along the line of control.
And that meant more casualties.
Sadly, yes. Further civilian casualties reported on both sides. It just shows how fragile this situation really is. Things can ignite very fast there.
And the diplomatic fallout was just as quick and really quite severe, wasn't it?
It really was. India moved to suspend the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty. I mean, that's a cornerstone agreement.
Yeah, huge deal.
Exactly. Then they closed the Wagah-Tari border crossing,
Right.
expelled Pakistani diplomats, and even pulled their military advisors out of Islamabad. Strong package of measures.
It really is a very clear signal. And Pakistan's reaction.
Well, predictable, perhaps.
Yeah.
Strong condemnation of India's actions, calling it aggression, and they vowed to respond in kind. This kind of diplomatic breakdown is obviously a major concern.
And you can bet the international community noticed. We heard calls from...
Pretty much all the major players, the UN, the US, China, Russia, all urging restraint, calling for dialogue to de-escalate. It's clear the world is watching this very, very closely.
Absolutely. And that's really what we want to get into today. We need to look beyond the immediate headlines, right? Understand the sort of cascading effects.
Precisely. What are the deeper implications? For the people living there, obviously, but also for regional stability, even global security. We're drawing on reports from, various sources like Al Jazeera, The Guardian, indie news outlets, AP News, trying to piece together a clearer picture.
Okay, so let's get right to it then. What's the situation actually like on the ground in Kashmir right now? It must be incredibly tense.
Reports paint a picture of, well, significant disruption to everyday life. You've got schools closed, airspace restricted. These aren't just small things. They impact everyone.
Yeah, you can just imagine the anxiety, people just trying to live their lives. Are there specific details emerging about how this is affecting people day to day?
Yes, definitely. We're hearing reports, things like civilians taking shelter in bunkers when the shelling starts.
Yeah.
People are, understandably avoiding public spaces much more. The whole region is just on edge. Heightened security everywhere. Visible military mobilization on both sides of the Long Sea. It's a constant, visible reminder of the conflict.
And it's crucial to remember this isn't some abstract geopolitical chess game. It's hitting people, real communities, incredibly hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have the tragic loss of life, first in the Pahalgam attack, then from the airstrikes, the artillery duels. But beyond that, it's the constant threat to physical safety. That's a daily reality now. It's this pervasive insecurity.
And that insecurity leads to displacement too, right? People having to flee their homes.
That's right. We're seeing families displaced, having to leave their homes, trying to find somewhere, anywhere safer. And you mentioned the disruption, schools closed, businesses shut down. It brings a kind of paralysis to daily life, creates widespread uncertainty. And one sector that's been hit particularly hard is tourism.
Ah, yes. Tourism is so vital for Kashmir's economy, isn't it? What's the impact been like there?
Oh, it's been drastic. I mean, it's a critical source of income for so many local families and communities.
Yeah.
And this instability, well, it's caused a sharp plummet. Reports talk about empty hotels, markets that were usually bustling with tourists now deserted. It directly hits livelihoods, creates real economic strain.
And beyond the economic side, beyond the physical safety, there has to be a huge psychological toll.
Oh, undoubtedly. The constant exposure to violence, the fear, maybe losing loved ones, seeing your normal life just completely disrupted, it all builds up.
Yeah.
We're talking about increased trauma, stress-related disorders, the very social fabric of these communities. It gets tested. People are dealing with collective grief, pervasive fear. It's deeply destabilizing. And the effects, well, they can last a very long time.
And you mentioned the economic hardship. It sounds like it goes beyond just tourism collapsing.
Yes, it does. Agriculture, which is another absolute cornerstone of the local economy, is also suffering.
How so?
Well, some reports we've seen are pointing to the added complication of reduced snowfall this year,
Oh,
which is making existing water scarcity issues even worse in some areas, and that directly impacts crop yields.
right, leading to worries about food security.
Exactly. Food security concerns and just another layer undermining livelihoods. It's like a perfect storm of challenges hitting people all at once.
So let's maybe take a step back now and look at the bigger picture. What are the wider implications of this escalation for the region, South Asia? It feels like it could easily spread.
It really does. When you place this in the broader South Asian context, the stability of the entire region is frankly at risk. This isn't just an India-Pakistan issue in isolation.
No.
It has the potential to draw in neighboring countries, maybe escalate into a much wider conflict. It would further destabilize what's already a very complex geopolitical area.
Which brings us, of course, to the most concerning aspect.
Hmm.
Both India and Pakistan have nuclear weapons. What does this dimension mean for global security?
Well, that's the elephant in the room, isn't it? A full-scale conventional conflict between two nuclear-armed states is dangerous enough.
Hmm.
But the potential for it to escalate to nuclear use, however small people might think that chance is, it carries catastrophic global consequences. It goes far beyond South Asia. It's a grave concern for everyone.
And amid all this high-level tension, the geopolitics, the nuclear threat, it's vital we don't lose sight of the human cost on the ground. It sounds like a serious humanitarian situation is unfolding.
Absolutely. It's the civilians who are bearing the brunt, always. Their safety, their homes, their livelihoods, their basic way of life, all severely disrupted. Addressing their immediate humanitarian needs has to be the top priority.
So looking forward then, what are some concrete steps? What could actually be done to try and de-escalate this, to find a way out of the immediate crisis?
Well, the first thing, the most urgent need, and you're hearing this from international bodies everywhere, is an immediate, unconditional ceasefire.
Just stop the fighting.
Exactly. Both sides need to halt all military activities. Stop the shelling, stop the troop movements. This is essential just to prevent further loss of life. And crucially, to allow humanitarian aid to actually reach the people affected. Access is key.
Okay, a ceasefire is step one, but how do you make it stick? And how do you move beyond just stopping the shooting to actually aggressing the conflict?
That's where international mediation becomes absolutely crucial. You need neutral third parties involved.
Like the UN or specific countries.
Could be the UN, could be influential countries that, importantly, have established lines of communication with both India and Pakistan. Their role would be to actively facilitate dialogue. Not just talk about talks, but actually help get them started.
Right.
To address the underlying causes, the root issues of the conflict, and try somehow to rebuild a tiny bit of trust, or at least functional communication.
And this suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty has become a major flashpoint in itself now. How critical is reinstating that?
Oh, it's vital. This treaty has been in place since 1960. It governs how the waters of the Indus River system are shared. Suspending it adds a really dangerous element, weaponizing water, essentially.
Yeah.
So reinstatement is key. But perhaps more than that, they need to recommit to the principles and maybe even establish clearer, more robust mechanisms for addressing concerns about water management fairly, maybe with some kind of neutral technical input.
Given the intense hostility right now, the idea of counterterrorism cooperation seems, well, almost impossible. Is there any precedent for that, even if it failed?
You're right, it's a huge hurdle. The level of mistrust is immense. Now, while formal joint operations are, pretty much unheard of and likely unworkable now,
Right.
there have been in the past very tentative instances of intelligence sharing on specific threats, but frankly, these often broke down very quickly amid accusations of bad faith, lack of transparency.
So not a great track record.
No. Any future cooperation, if it were ever possible, would need incredibly robust trust-building measures first, plus very clear protocols and, crucially, verification mechanisms. It's a long shot right now, let's be honest.
And you mentioned involving regional stakeholders earlier. Why bring countries like China, Iran, maybe Saudi Arabia into the mix? What's the thinking there?
Well, all these countries have significant strategic interests, economic interests, in the stability of South Asia.
Okay.
Engaging them in some way in the peace process, or at least keeping them informed and involved, could provide additional leverage, maybe open up different diplomatic channels.
Yeah.
It could help ensure that any resolution is more comprehensive, maybe more sustainable, because it considers the wider regional dynamics. China, especially, given its influence.
Okay, let's dig into that a bit more. The specific implications for these key players, starting with Pakistan. What does this escalation mean for them practically?
For Pakistan, it's putting immense strain on an economy that was already struggling, and on its internal security situation, too. The suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, as we said, is a direct threat to their agriculture, their water security.
Yeah.
Very serious. And the border closure hits vital trade links, movement of people. It increases their sense of isolation. You see their diplomatic efforts now trying to rally support from allies. It shows how seriously they're taking this.
And what about China? They're a huge player, complex relationship with both India and Pakistan. What are their interests here? How does this crisis affect Beijing?
China has massive interests,
Mm.
economically, strategically. Think Belt and Road Initiative, their close partnership with Pakistan.
It's too packed.
Exactly. Instability, right on their doorstep, especially involving Pakistan and India, directly impacts those interests.
Hmm.
Publicly, China calls for de-escalation, a neutral stance.
Mm.
But behind the scenes, their relationship with Pakistan means their influence, or lack thereof, is a crucial factor. And of course, the situation in Kashmir always has implications for China's own territorial perspectives and concerns in the region, like Aksai Chin.
And zooming out again for the wider global community, beyond the terrifying prospect of nuclear conflict, what else should we be taking away from this?
Well, beyond the nuclear shadow, which is obviously paramount, this crisis really underscores, yet again, the fragility of peace in a region burdened by deep-seated historical grievances.
Yeah.
It also, perhaps depressingly, highlights the limitations of our current international mechanisms. How effective are they really when faced with these kinds of complex, long-running disputes where national interests clash so sharply?
That's a sobering thought.
It is. But the widespread international concern, the calls for de-escalation
Thanks for
we
tuning in
mentioned
to
earlier,
Echoes of the
they
Past.
do show a global
If
recognition
you enjoyed this
of the
episode,
potential
don't
for
forget
this
to hit that
destabilize
subscribe
things
button so you
far
never
beyond
miss
the
a
immediate
journey
area.
through history.
So to try and
Until next
bring it all
time,
together then, this
keep the
horrific
past
attack in
alive.
Pahalgam, it acted as a catalyst, didn't it? But it's really exposed or re-exposed these deep-seated, interconnected issues in a highly volatile part of the world.
That sums it up well, yeah. We've seen the immediate tragic human cost. We've touched on the potential for wider regional conflict, the ever-present nuclear danger, and the significant geopolitical ripples spreading outwards.
And the message seems overwhelmingly clear. De-escalation is needed urgently. Dialogue is essential.
Absolutely. There's no military solution here that doesn't involve catastrophic risk. And central to any potential lasting solution, whenever that might be possible, has to be a genuine focus on the well-being, the rights, the aspirations of the Kashmiri people themselves. They've endured this conflict for far, far too long.
It certainly leaves you with a lot to think about. Here's something to consider. In a world increasingly grappling with climate change, with resource scarcity, what does it mean long-term when vital resources like water become weaponized in a nuclear-armed region? Or maybe think about this. When national security and historical grievances clash so intensely, are our current international laws and diplomatic tools really enough? What kind of innovative approaches, maybe beyond traditional mediation, might be needed to actually foster lasting peace in conflicts this deeply entrenched? These are tough questions, but we hope this deep dive has at least shed some light on a deeply concerning situation.
Thanks for tuning in to Echoes of the Past. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a journey through history. Until next time, keep the past alive.